Welcome to Ouch. Was that a ghost? This podcast may contain graphic material, which some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
Help me.
Now that we covered that, here's your host, Liss.
Welcome back to Ouch, Was That a Ghost? This week I have with me the mini-Kate.
I mean, many have called me that.
So instead of this being a Kate-a-sode, it's going to be a Violet-a-sode.
Yes. It's a pleasure to be included. I've listened to plenty of the Kate-a-sodes. I really enjoyed them. But then again, I'm biased. She is my mother.
What was your favorite?
I liked the Turk's Head episode.
Oh, that was good.
I really like that one because that's always a symbol that I've noticed, but I've never really known what was going on with it. I just thought they carved some creepy guy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was cool to actually get the context on that. But really, they've all been really fun. I liked the one about the, was it the squonk? The squink?
The squonk. He's the one that he looks like a pig and he just...
It did speak to my soul.
Yeah, he's very relatable.
I found that incredibly sweet as like a type of creature that could possibly exist out there. I was very charmed by it. So those are my two favorite Kate-a-sodes.
And are you proud of your mother?
Oh, yes, obviously. Absolutely.
She wanted to go around and pop all the boils and pimples on the guy?
Well, sounds like her. I'll tell you that. But no, they were lovely episodes. And I mean, if you're calling them Kate-a-sodes, I'm assuming they were decently well received.
Yes, they definitely were.
Fantastic. And again, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. I'm so excited to hear what stories you're going to bring.
All right. So I am hoping to give you a little bit of real history and a little bit of spooky lore. So just for a little bit of context, I'm not interested in getting haunted. That's one of my goals in life, is that I don't want any sort of creature or ghostly spirit to come and cause me trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just putting this out into the universe that we're going to be talking about graveyards today. And so any ghosts that may be out there, I'm not the person you want to attach yourself to. So I just thought I'd start with that. But we're going to be talking about graveyards today. And I recently moved to Connecticut, and I've really been trying to learn about the place that I am now. I really focus on history and preservation in my job. And so when I move somewhere new or when I spend time in a new place, I want to know what the history of that place is. And slowly it's becoming using the structures as a way to understand the history of a place. I won't get too much into my preservation ethos because I want to tell you some actually interesting stories.
Okay.
But I do think it's important that these old graveyards be preserved because they can tell us so many really cool stories.
Absolutely.
But with that out of the way, I'm going to tell you about some really interesting details about a local cemetery. So this is the cemetery Cedar Grove Cemetery in New London. Have you ever been to New London?
I have driven through, but I've never stopped.
That's most people's situations. So it's actually an incredibly old city. It was founded in 1649. Might be 46. It's 46 or 49, one or the other.
In the 1600s.
Exactly. Actually by the son of John Winthrop, which is pretty cool.
Oh.
And then prior to this, it was Pequot land. But right now, we have cemeteries that go back to 1700s. And we have a couple of them in town. And Cedar Grove was created in 1851. But the weird thing about it is that there are a ton of graves in Cedar Grove that predate the 1800s. How much do you know about graveyards and graveyard history? There's no wrong answer.
In regards to like the facing or the symbolism or what?
Anything. I don't want to tell you stuff you already know.
I want to hear it all.
All right.
I love going on graveyard tours. I'm a weirdo. I think that they're fascinating, like the different stones that they use to perform certain rituals, or why this face is this, or why this symbol is on this gravestone. I love it all, and I could hear it 1,000 times. So anything you want to share.
Oh, fantastic. Because I'm in the same boat. I actually just led a tour on the Rural Cemetery movement, which is where I'm getting a lot of these details from.
Ooh. You led the tour?
I led one of them. It was a series. I led the first one, and then my professional compatriots at Cedar Grove, they led the other tour. It's a very strange and lucky coincidence that I'm even in this position. That was a ton of fun. I did some of the research myself. And so I learned that while this cemetery was created in 1851, it was supposed to be, a restful, peaceful place because it was part of the rural or garden cemetery movement, which comes out of all sorts of different things. I won't get too much into it, but rest assured, 1830 through the early 1900s in the United States, people are trying to create these big, expansive, natural, restful cemeteries. And so in New London in the 1880s, 1886, the old style of cemeteries are becoming a problem. So you have this new cemetery in Cedar Grove, which is expansive, rolling hills, beautiful trees set out from the city. The graveyards that exist in the city, and there's a couple of them, they're tiny, they're really tightly packed together. They're starting to smell, some of them, and they're just in poor repair. I found a lot of really angry letters to the editor throughout my research process.
On top of the smell, wouldn't the public health, that would be a hazard, wouldn't it, at some point?
Well, yeah, so public health in 1880 is a little bit different than public health today.
Definitely.
It's more of a public nuisance than a public health thing. So it definitely was a threat to the public and their safety and security. But we're immediately post Civil War, and I'm sure you've heard all those stories of Civil War doctors who aren't even washing their hands between sawing people's legs off. So it is. You're right. It's a public health nuisance. But that's only partially grasped. People are really nervous about dealing with plague bodies. That's a big problem. But other than that, they're not really as cleanliness focused as we are today. And so there is a major issue at one of these graveyards. It's the second graveyard, and it is a plot of land. It's a really nice plot of land that would be great to develop around. And this extremely rich young gentleman, I'm forgetting his name, but and when I say young gentleman, I mean he's in his 20s to 30s. He wants to develop this plot of land. He's going to turn it into housing for all the rich whalers, but he has to get rid of this pesky cemetery first. It's actually really bad because it's a cemetery, and then immediately right next to it is a quarry. I don't really know how that worked, but it just rest assured it wasn't a place you wanted to be. Is kind of the energy I get.
I hope nobody was drinking that water.
You'd hope.
Yeah.
You'd really hope. Probably drinking something else, given that they're all whaling captains who end up moving in there. And so he has this idea. He's like, okay, we're going to redevelop this land. All right, we're moving the graves. And so he pays to have all of the graves moved from this second cemetery, that's small and tight and smelly next to the quarry, out to the really nice green area, right? Goes pretty well. There's some people in the newspaper who say that it's like an affront. There's a specific person who complains that it's so bad that it stirs the pages of history, and I really like that.
I think if you don't want to be haunted, this is probably the first thing you should not do, is move a whole bunch of buried people.
Yes, exactly.
Step one.
Exactly, because these are all graves from the 1700s, so they're like cherubs' heads and oh god, what are they called? Weeping willows. They've got all those designs on them. Yeah, you really don't want to do that. But rest assured, they get moved. There's actually some really interesting people there. There's a Captain Gabriel Sester. He was born in Barcelona, Spain. He lived most of his life as a sailor and a mariner. He comes to the U.S. in 1771.
Aren't you supposed to say Barcelona?
Barcelona. He's born in Barcelona, Spain. Barcelona. But he's born over there. He comes here in like 50 years into his life in 1771. And his gravestone is this very elaborate slab. And it says like, oh, he was well beloved by his neighbors. And he was charitable and humane. And he committed himself to the American cause. You know, all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also found records of people saying this guy was a smuggler, criminal. It seems to me that he was some sort of privateer or character of ill repute. So that just tells you how much you can trust the stories people tell on graves. There's always descriptions written. It's very interesting.
I've seen recently a lot of people have been putting like QR codes on their graves. Well, not a lot of people, but enough people that it like makes the news, and you can go and scan it, and it like shows their either obituary or videos of them or whatever. And I think that's so crazy how far we've come from like a little thing that you can write to now having all these elaborate pictures on there or QR codes.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it feels in some ways like this massive diversion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in other ways, it's kind of that same idea. Some guy who writes like a paragraph on their gravestone about, oh, this person was this and did this and he lived this way. It kind of has the same effect of a QR code, except it's a lot easier to read those written narratives as compared to the QR codes.
Yeah.
That's also a fun thing, is that if you ever go to an old cemetery, you'll notice that everybody has like 3 paragraphs on their graves. Like if you see someone who's buried in like 1860, there's usually not a lot. But if it's someone from, say, 1790, it'll be like, this person was this and this and this, and they did this. And I just think that's really cute because you can see them literally running out of space on the stone. It's like when you try to make someone a birthday card and you know, big B. But I was getting into the spooky stuff. All right.
Okay.
So that goes well. And then a couple years later, there's an effort to move another graveyard. So talking about not wanting to get haunted, they've already moved the second graveyard.
Wait, so they moved the first to the second place, and now they're going to move that one again?
Nope. No worries. It's confusing. So the first graveyard in New London never gets moved. The second graveyard gets moved to Cedar Grove, which is a big place. And then the third graveyard, which I mistakenly referred to as a second graveyard, gets moved. But it's not second graveyard that gets moved. It's third graveyard, which also gets moved to the same cemetery.
Why are you putting math in this, Violet?
You know...
No, I'm kidding.
2 + 2 is...
graveyard.
Something or other. Yeah, see? I do it all. Math, history. But there's a problem this time, which is that the land that they are trying to develop, on which third graveyard had been sitting, is not some rich guy who wants to make sure all of the graveyard bits are out of there so he can build a really profitable neighborhood for rich investors. No, this time the city wants to get involved. They're building a school, the Nathan Hale Grammar School. And so rather than paying to have the graves moved, they put out these advertisements in the paper that say, hey, you guys have to move your graves.
What?
And I can find you these advertisements. They're like, hey, we're going to be building here. Get the graves out.
That is insane. So they gave notices to everybody that you have. How long did they give them?
Oh, I think they gave them a pretty wide berth, but it's still crazy that they didn't pay for this. I know. There had actually been a lot of things around that time, the late 1800s, that the people in New London just didn't want to pay for. So a lot of the big structures in town are not by the government. They're just by whatever rich guy wanted to build something.
Yeah.
And so after this event, as the graves get moved and the school eventually gets built, there becomes a persistent rumor in New London that they only moved the stones. That's what they say. That these people, rather than dig up their loved ones, spend that money, spend that effort, they just transplanted the stone, leaving the coffin and the body all the way down there, which is quite a scary thought.
It's scary, but I would understand if they did it too, because if they're resting, maybe the family's like, well, I don't think they should be moved. And to shut them up, just moving the stone.
True.
I can see both ways, but then you're leaving. Then, I mean, you can cause haunting just by moving them anyways.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is it more offensive if you move the whole body? But also, you have to understand that technically they were kind of getting like an upgrade because they're going from these really crowded, small cemeteries that are like within the city to this like really nice rural area where like there's trees and flowers. So maybe the ghosts won't actually be mad.
Eh, I don't know. Some of them just want to rest. I don't know.
True,
This is a
true.
weird story.
So that's the rumor that persists. And then in 1992, when they're making changes to Nathan Hale Grammar School, they start digging up bodies. So the rumor was true, at least in some respects. Most of the bodies had been moved, but the bodies of individuals who had died extremely poor or without family to actually move the graves, they were still down there. And people who had died of yellow fever, because there had been a bad outbreak in the late 1700s, they were also not moved. So there had just been the bodies of these individuals who died in the 1700s or early 1800s under this school for literally 100 years.
Oh my gosh. This turns into a haunting, I'm assuming. Like, that's kind of so sad for those families, though. If they wanted to move them and they couldn't afford to, and they just had to just quietly take the gravestone, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is a real shame. I mean, it's the poppers that are more disturbing. Like the yellow fever victims I get to some extent because given what they knew about health and technology, they probably didn't want to dig up anyone who died of yellow fever just out of fear that it could reinfect them.
No, that makes sense.
So, while we don't necessarily have cases of like a legitimate haunting in that building, one has to imagine the ghosts were down there. Um, for sure. But I want to talk a little bit more about other cases of when or where you should be dealing with dead bodies. So this is more of a graveyard theme rather than one specific story, but obviously these people in late 1800s, they don't want to touch the yellow fever victims. But have you ever, on any of these tours, been inside a mausoleum?
I have.
And did you get the warning before you went in?
Did I get a warning? No.
Okay, well, here's a little lesson.
Okay.
So, mausoleums, obviously, these beautiful buildings, they're well preserved. And the problem is that we don't always know exactly what these individuals died of or what they were exposed to in life. And most diseases are completely dormant years after death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tuberculosis is not one of those diseases. So usually you're safe, but sometimes the tuberculosis virus apparently, and I'm no scientist, so this could be wrong, but I was warned about this. Apparently, it can become dormant within a body, and it could reaffect you. Also, following the American Civil War, new techniques in preservation of bodies become very important because you want to bring people up from the South, you want to bring people home, right?
Yeah.
Which is a very sweet, sentimental thing to do. So, you've been tasked. Imagine you're in charge of preserving a corpse, bringing it up north. You've been tasked with making sure it doesn't decay on the way. What are you going to do? What chemical do you think is going to be useful here?
Did they have formaldehyde back then?
So they had the predecessor, which is just arsenic, which is that you would just fill the body full of arsenic.
Oh my gosh.
So you also have to be careful if you're dealing with, and this is usually not the case because usually people who died during the American Civil War are not in mausoleums, but you do have to be careful because there's also probably a crap ton of arsenic, depending on exactly how they were carried back.
That's so crazy.
Yep.
See, I've heard of that being used before, like when people had syphilis and stuff. They're like, here, you have syphilis, take some arsenic.
Mm-hmm. There's actually there's a gentleman buried in Cedar Grove, J.N. Harris, who made his fortune selling these vegetable tonics, vegetable painkillers.
Was he a snake oil salesman?
Well, the thing is that they did work because it was like
Oh.
all of this vegetable stuff and then like a shit ton of opioids. Just like so much opium.
Don't worry about that. It's the carrots that's helping you.
Exactly. It's like it's a painkiller with all these good vegetable chemicals and like a ton of opioids to be consumed internally.
Oh my gosh.
As the bottle says. And if you look up a picture of the advertisements, there's this great one where these cherubs are like shepherding the drink down, and it's like,
What's it called again?
it's J.N. Harris's vegetable painkiller, I think.
Painkiller.
Something of that kind. The use of the word painkiller is specific, though. And if you look at the bottle, it literally just looks like a bottle of nips, which is just crazy to me. I can send you some later, too, but he made his whole fortune on this, enough that he has this huge, like, obelisk grave that's like a huge tower with an angel on top, and it's literally a whole circle of land in between the roads. So he literally has his own section.
Oh, wow.
Which is really fun. Mm-hmm. And then I'll give you one more fun story from the graveyard, which is kind of the theme of this episode, I'm realizing, which is, okay, I'm trying to think, because there's a couple of ones that we could really dig into. So there's a bunch of mausoleums. As I mentioned, a lot of them are semi-toxic. Not too bad. Most of the time it's fine because it's within the body, within the coffin, which does a lot. You know, wood does actually a lot to prevent that from being breathed in by you. But mausoleums have been historically a point of contention. I mean, you're familiar, I assume, with some of the Victorian traditions around mausoleums?
We did a Patreon on like all just weird old Victorian burial practices. And then we went into like taphophobia and like the fear and all that stuff. And then some people just wanted to be in the mausoleums in case they were still alive. And
exactly, with the little hammers tied to doors.
Yes.
We don't have any of the hammer ones here, but we do have a mausoleum, which apparently at one point had a whole backing of Tiffany stained glass.
Oh, wow.
I know. Which was stolen right out of the graveyard.
That's not cool.
And then it was actually recovered. Somehow they found it. I don't know how.
Like a lot of people that steal gravestones or things like that, they sometimes just return them because they're like, okay, this is happening around my house. I don't want it. Get it back.
You know what? I don't blame them. But it's just baffling to me. But it's why anyone would want to disturb the dead. Like, you're going to get more than you bargained for doing that. Whatever financial gain you can get from screwing with someone's gravestone is not worth whatever that ghost is going to do to you. Or the guilt. But there was actually a couple of crimes I found documented in the cemetery. And these are all from the late 1880s or early 1890s. Just list them out for you. Notorious amounts of flower theft. They report that it's been happening all summer long. The people are just coming in. They're just grabbing flowers out of the ground. Additionally, apparently someone had been running a rum mill out of the graveyard. Those are the words they use. I don't know if that's like... It has to be just the sale, right? Because I can't imagine someone is like setting up a distillery in the graveyard. That can't be right.
I hope not.
I hope not. And I only found the one report, so I'm assuming that it's just like a crime thing. But it's just such an arresting image. And then at one point, someone actually decides to pasture their cattle in the graveyard.
Why?
I don't know. I really don't know. But I found it, that's another incredibly angry letter to the editor that I found, where this person says that the founders of Cedar Grove would be resting uneasy in their grave if they knew, the state of the graveyard. It was so bad that apparently, this is a little disputed, so I'm not entirely sure how accurate this is, but apparently the lieutenant governor, his cousin had died and was to be buried there. And he supposedly put up 2 night watchmen not because he thought his cousin was still alive, but to prevent the robbing of the grave.
Yeah, there was a lot of body snatchers back then because they could just go and sell them to medical schools.
Yeah.
They had a lot of things like mort safes too. I don't know if you've ever heard of those that go like over the grave.
Oh,
so nobody could, it was like a iron cage type thing that would be over grave until the body was decomposed enough that it was kind of useless to, grave robbers. And then they could either reuse it for another family member or sell it for the iron.
Wow, yeah. I guess you'd have to dig that back up though, right?
It was like, I don't know if you want to look at a pic. It looks almost like a dog cage, but not. But it's like all iron and it just goes right on top and kind of.
Somehow creepier than I was imagining. I was imagining kind of like just like a regular treasure chest. I don't know why that's what my brain envisioned, but that was what I saw in my mind's eye. So yeah, there's a lot of very interesting stories of weird stuff that happens in graveyards.
Go on.
Well, I was just referring to, again, all of these people who just come in, and the tradition used to be that a lot of these graveyards you were supposed to spend time in, you were supposed to walk through them and find like a peace with nature. And that was like, it was actually quite a common thing to do at dinner parties. I found someone who was clearly very annoyed that they'd gone to a lot of the same style dinner parties out in Boston. And it's another letter of complaint that's saying that the classic Boston dinner party is that you have a very boring dinner, and then to top it off, you go take a walk in the cemetery. It was very much a sense where it was more okay to spend time in cemeteries and more reasonable, but I think that also allowed for people to get away with, again, more liquor selling and flower stealing and grave robbing than might have been the case prior. Remind me of where we were while we cut out.
We were talking about how the practices have changed at cemeteries, and like people before used to sit around and have lunch there every day with their loved ones. They'd like set up picnics at their graves.
Yeah, there would be, having a picnic at a grave. I mean, a lot of these are beautiful green spaces. It might not be acceptable these days, but sometimes walking through, you understand why they'd want to. There's a couple of people who were involved in the spiritualist movement who believed that the graveyard could be a really healing place. They are a little affiliated with Christian Scientists, so we do have to go in with that caveat. But there was an idea, you've heard the idea of like going to the seaside and breathing in the healing air.
Yes.
And there was an idea that being in communion with nature could physically heal your body. And then certain members of the spiritualist movement extended that to the graveyard as well, where if you were in like a beautiful, restful graveyard, as the visitor, you would get something out of it. And I don't think a lot of times in our modern society, we think that like we get anything out of graveyards other than, a place to know that our loved ones are resting.
I feel like they're so on top of each other at every graveyard that I go to. Everyone's just so close. There's no spread out anything how it was before where you have an area to sit. Now, basically, if you sit down, you're almost sitting on another grave.
Yeah, that's usually the case. Yeah, that is an interesting point. I mean, we don't have the footstones. They aren't too common these days. They used to, measure the length of the corpse, so you'd know not to bury the next person on top of where that person already was.
Yeah, you don't see those at all anymore.
Yeah, I wonder, I guess maybe they just keep better track of it, like, formally. And then, of course, on the idea of the spiritualist movement, you also had people who thought that they could communicate with the dead, but I want to specifically narrow in on the idea that you could use technology to communicate with the dead. I know it sounds a little silly, right? Because obviously we understand that there are like certain people believe there are ways to communicate with the dead, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on that, but there was also this idea that you could call the past on the telephone, not necessarily that you were even communicating with the dead person in the grave, that you could somehow like call back in time.
Oh my goodness.
And there are records, and again, you can't quote me on this because I don't remember the exact individuals involved, but I know there are people who would call out to sea thinking they could communicate with like dead sailors who had, fallen off their ships or been dragged out, and you could just ring them up, which I think is extremely interesting.
And say what? Be careful, don't fall off?
I think it's a little late for that. And here's another bit that confuses me, is I don't understand how the dead people are supposed to pick up, right?
Agreed.
Like, if you're calling a ghost, Is there a ghost telephone?
You just picture him go to try to pick up that handset and his hand's just going right through it and right through it.
Exactly. Or like maybe the ghosts, like once Alexander Graham Bell dies, does he invent the ghost telephone and it goes both ways?
Oh.
It just it never quite caught on. So it's I think it's details like that where it's like it becomes such a literal talking to the dead where it's like the idea that you could call them just as easily as I could, ring you, that it becomes a little a little out there.
I do understand that people in grief need to feel like there's some sort of connection with their loved one, but yeah, there is a line that you can cross that's kind of
Oh, of
that is out
course.
there, and that's probably somebody's making money off of this saying, "Hey, I can call your deceased husband if you just give me," I don't even know the money back then, shillings. Oh, this was in Connecticut. Okay, so it's just money.
Yeah, but maybe they did in Europe too. I wouldn't doubt it. The Victorians, pretty crazy people.
Mhm.
And a lot of the Victorian traditions caught on here because that was the hip thing to do. It's like
Yes.
that was what was hot over there, and we got to follow the trendsetters. We got to be on theme. So we're going to adopt all the Victorian mourning traditions because everybody wants to be as cool as Queen Victoria.
Do you know what's so bizarre? That Victorian era and cowboys were happening, like the Wild West was happening at the same time.
It is pretty crazy to think. You want me to throw something else in there?
Sure.
It's actually the end of the samurai era occurs at the start of the Victorian era.
That doesn't even seem
Yeah,
right.
pretty crazy stuff. I know it doesn't. It's truly, it's the very end of the samurai era, but it's still it still overlaps. It's crazy. It's truly crazy to think about just the way that all of that history connects with itself. And we think of these as such like distinct eras or distinct periods in a nation's history. They really aren't. They're kind of all in the same zone, right?
Yeah, just different parts of the world, and they're not communicating enough to share their samurai skills and
Exactly. Look,
Queen
I'm saying
Victorianisms.
exactly. They could learn from each other. I'm not quite sure what the idea of like a cowboy observing Victorian mourning rituals is very strange to me, but I'm not opposed to it. I'd watch a movie about that.
I'm just picturing, because in the Victorian mourning rituals, they had a lot of what do you call those? They used to hire women to like cry and throw themselves on the casket.
Yeah,
And I'm just picturing a cowboy watching that would be kind of
I'd take that
amusing.
job. I would if they paid me to cry and throw myself on a casket. I would not mind in the least.
And the good thing, if you did that, you didn't really have to follow all the social norms in the neighborhood. Like you had more freedom. Like you're the crazy lady.
Exactly. And you're making money. You're making money being crazy, and you can't really do that as much these days.
Win-win.
Totally. Yeah, so those are my tales. Tales from the graveyard, tales from the crypt for you today.
That was fantastic. And if you ever do a tour again, let me know, because I would go to it.
Oh, I will. I will probably be renting some in the future. I'll let you know. I can't commit to any dates right now, but if you'd like to join, I think I'm a pretty good tour guide. It's a lot nicer when you're walking through a beautiful green space as opposed to just trying to picture it in your mind. And I really appreciate you having me on. I hope this was enjoyable to yourself and to your listeners.
I enjoyed myself. I don't know. I'm sure that they will too. That was fantastic. Look at you running the whole show.
Well, I did memorize this tour, so I might as well, give you the details. And just like I end the tour quite sanctimoniously, I do want to just encourage people to visit their local graveyards, to spend time, maybe respectfully. I'm not saying you should actually set up a picnic, but I'm saying there's a lot of benefit in walking through these places, getting curious about the names, the graves, the art, the architecture, and maybe getting involved in your local cemetery organization. You might learn how to clean a gravestone. You never know.
Very well said. Well put. And do not do any rum distilleries, guys, at any local cemeteries.
Oh, yes, please. Set up a house for them like normal people do. But yes, those are the tales that I have for you today.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
No problem. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. It was a ton of fun to do. I've never done something like this before.
And you are so well spoken. It's insane that you're an adult. I still can't get over that. It's so weird.
You're lucky you've caught me. I'm semi well spoken today. It's just because most of the tour, this is just deets from the tour that I have that I can report at you. Not always this well articulated.
Well, it was lovely. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Till next time. Bye.
Goodbye. Take care.
Thank you for listening. If you need more content or just want to help support the podcast, head on over to patreon.com and search Ouch, Was That a Ghost? If you need some snazzy merch, you can find it at crowdmade.com by searching Ouch, Was That a Ghost? If you have a story you'd like to share, you can email it to ouchwasthataghost@yahoo.com. You can also find us on Facebook and all the other social media platforms under Ouch, Was That a Ghost?
Help me.
All links can also be found on ouchwasthataghost.com.